The dopamine trap. Why your brain can't feel pleasure anymore, he sat at his desk, scrolling through his phone for the third time in 5 minutes, feeling nothing. Not boredom, not excitement, just ... static. Like his brain had gone numb to everything that used to light him up. He couldn't remember the last time he felt genuinely happy. Not the quick hit of a notification, not the shallow buzz of a like. Real happiness, the kind that lingers, that fills your chest and stays with you. Something had shifted, and he couldn't explain when it started. Most of us have felt this, that strange emptiness after hours online, the restlessness when nothing seems interesting anymore, the need for more stimulation, louder content, faster dopamine. Just to feel okay, we blame ourselves. We think we're lazy, ungrateful, broken somehow. But the truth is far more unsettling. Your brain isn't broken, it's been hijacked. And the dopamine system, the very mechanism designed to help you survive and thrive, has become your greatest vulnerability. It started innocently enough, a few social media apps, some late-night streaming, a little online shopping to unwind, harmless distractions, right? But over time, something changed. The things that used to bring him joy, reading a book, having a real conversation, going for a walk, started feeling dull. Boring, even, like they weren't enough anymore. He needed more, faster, brighter, louder. And when he couldn't get it, he felt irritable, anxious, hollow. What he didn't realize was that his brain had been rewired. Dopamine is often misunderstood. People call it the pleasure chemical, but that's not quite right. Dopamine isn't about pleasure. It's about anticipation. It's the chemical that drives you to seek, to pursue, to want more. It's what kept our ancestors hunting for food, exploring new territory, solving problems. It's what makes you reach for your phone before you even think about it. But here's the catch. Dopamine doesn't care if what you're chasing is good for you, it just wants the chase. And modern technology has learned to exploit that perfectly. Every time you open an app, your brain releases a small hit of dopamine. Not because you found something meaningful, but because you might. The unpredictability is what hooks you. Researchers at Stanford discovered something chilling: intermittent rewards, the kind you get from scrolling, swiping, refreshing, are more addictive than predictable ones. Your brain becomes a slot machine, and you keep pulling the lever. Over time, your dopamine receptors downregulate. They become less sensitive. You need more stimulation to feel the same level of satisfaction. It's not willpower you're losing. It's your brain's ability to feel pleasure from normal life. He tried to quit, deleted the apps, set screen time limits, promised himself he'd be more present, but within hours, the discomfort crept in. The boredom felt unbearable, like withdrawal, because that's exactly what it was. When you flood your brain with constant dopamine hits, your baseline drops. Normal activities, the ones that used to feel rewarding, now register as flat, underwhelming. You're not depressed, you're dopamine depleted. And the worst part? You don't even realize it's happening. What would you do in that moment, when everything that used to matter feels meaningless? Most people do what he did. They go back. They reach for the phone, the screen, the distraction. Because the discomfort of feeling nothing is worse than the numbness of scrolling. But there's another way. It just requires something most of us are terrified of: stillness. The first 48 hours are the hardest. When you remove the constant stimulation, your brain panics. It craves the dopamine hit like a drug. You feel restless, irritable, like you're crawling out of your skin. But if you can sit with that discomfort, if you can let your brain recalibrate, something remarkable happens. Your dopamine receptors start to heal. Slowly, your sensitivity returns. The world begins to feel vivid again. A conversation becomes engaging. A meal tastes better. Music hits differently. You start to feel alive again. He didn't believe it at first, but somewhere around day 3, he noticed something strange. He was walking to get coffee, and he actually noticed the sky, the way the light hit the buildings, the sound of birds he'd never heard before. It wasn't dramatic, it wasn't life-changing in that moment, but it was real. And that scared him, because he realized how long he'd been living on autopilot. Neuroscientists call this dopamine fasting, though the term is a bit misleading. You're not eliminating dopamine, you're resetting your brain's reward threshold. You're teaching it to find pleasure in the simple again. But here's what most people miss. It's not just about cutting out screens, it's about understanding what your brain is actually craving. Deep down, your brain doesn't want endless novelty. It wants meaning. It wants connection. It wants something worth caring about. But when you train it to expect instant gratification, you lose the ability to work toward anything that takes time. You lose patience, you lose focus, you lose the capacity for delayed gratification, which is the foundation of every meaningful achievement in life. The dopamine trap isn't just stealing your pleasure, it's stealing your future. Then came the setback. A stressful week at work, a bad night's sleep. And before he knew it, he was back on his phone at 2 a.m., scrolling mindlessly through nothing. He felt defeated, like he'd failed. But what he didn't realize was that recovery isn't linear. It's a rhythm, a practice. You don't fix dopamine dysregulation once and move on. You learn to recognize the patterns. You build new habits. You protect your attention like it's the most valuable thing you own. Because it is. Sometimes we only understand the value of something when it's been taken from us. He hadn't lost his ability to feel, he'd just buried it under layers of distraction. And slowly, carefully, he started digging it back out. One of the most powerful shifts came when he started replacing instant dopamine with earned dopamine. Instead of scrolling first thing in the morning, he went for a run. Not because he loved running, but because his brain needed a real reward to chase. Instead of binge-watching at night, he picked up a book. The first few pages were torture. His mind wandered constantly. But after a week, something clicked. He started looking forward to it. He was retraining his brain to value the slow, the deep, the real. What surprised him most wasn't just how switching his habits improved his focus, but how everything started to feel different. Once he stopped chasing the next hit, he wasn't expecting such a clear change, and honestly, it took more than a few tries before he figured out what really worked. This isn't about some perfect system, just real results that made a noticeable difference for him. He started tracking his mood, his energy, his screen time. Not obsessively, just enough to see the patterns. And the patterns were undeniable. One of the tools that helped him most was a simple habit tracker. Nothing fancy, just a way to visualize progress and create small wins that his brain could celebrate. It gave him earned dopamine, the kind that comes from effort, not algorithms. I'll leave a link below if you want to explore what worked for him. It's not a magic fix, but it made the process feel less overwhelming. By week 6, he noticed something profound. He could sit in silence without feeling anxious. He could have a conversation without checking his phone. He could finish a project without needing constant stimulation. His brain had remembered how to rest, how to focus, how to feel, and for the first time in years, he felt like himself again. But here's the thing. The world hasn't changed. The apps are still there. The algorithms are still running. The dopamine traps are still set. The difference is that now he knows how they work. And that awareness is everything. He's not perfect. He still slips. But now, when he reaches for his phone out of habit, he catches himself. He asks, am I bored or am I avoiding something? Am I seeking connection or just distraction? And that pause, that tiny moment of awareness, is where freedom lives. The dopamine trap is real, but it's not permanent. Your brain is incredibly adaptive. It can heal. It can recalibrate. It can learn to find joy in the real world again. But it requires something radical in 2025. Intentional boredom. Deliberate discomfort. Choosing the slow over the instant. It requires you to fight for your own attention. When he looked in the mirror again, it wasn't his reflection that had changed. It was what he believed about himself. He wasn't broken. He wasn't lazy. He wasn't weak. He'd just been living in a system designed to keep him numb. And now, he was awake. This isn't medical advice. It's an observation, a pattern, a warning. If you've felt that numbness, that restlessness, that sense that nothing satisfies you anymore, you're not alone, and you're not imagining it. Your brain is trying to tell you something. Maybe it's time to listen. Tell us what part of this story resonated most and where you're watching from. We'd love to hear how this lands in your world. See you in the next video. Bye.